You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Monday morning live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, we appreciate you joining us. I would love to get your hear from you in the chat. If you can maybe drop where you're watching from, or any questions that you have as our show goes along. We'd love to hear from you in that YouTube chat if you're watching us there. We've got a lot to get to in this next hour and beyond. We are planning to stream live much of the afternoon here for a number of reasons. We'll go over that, but here's our plan for this 11 o'clock hour. The Attorney General, James Othmeyer, speaking at a National Drug Enforcement Conference and talking about the opioid epidemic. Had some interesting takeaways from that, so we hope to play that for you. Governor Ron DeSantis expected to speak any minute now in Key West. We are standing by for the start of a news conference. Unclear what the topic might be. He is speaking at the Kermit H. Lewin Stock Island Reverse Osmosis facility. So that is in Key West. We expect that to begin here shortly, scheduled to begin at 11. And we will stand by for the start of that. When that does begin, we will bring that to you live here on Fox 35 News Plus. What you're looking at, live look here inside a Brevard County Brevard County courtroom, rather, where a teacher is on trial. She is charged with disorderly intoxication and resisting an officer. We're talking about Carly Anderson, one of the teachers who, alongside an ex-principal, is charged in connection with this large house party that involved nearly 200 students who were partying as well. This morning, one update for you. The state dropped a disorderly conduct charge against Carly Anderson. This comes after she already rejected a plea offer from the state to avoid jail time. Now, this is jury selection is underway. The trial is getting underway in Brevard County, and we expect the opening statements in that to begin here later today. When that does begin, we will bring it to you. But want to get you to Fox 35's Morgan Parrish right now, who gets us up to speed on this case.
Good morning. 100 underage students were at that house party. We know that a lot of them were drinking, and the party was actually at Brevard County Principal Elizabeth Hill Brodegan's house. We know that she's also facing charges as well. But as for Anderson, she's accused of actually being a guest at that party. She was initially charged with child neglect. However, the state attorney's office dropped the felony charge back on April 1st and instead charged her with disorderly conduct and disorderly intoxication. So Anderson was offered a plea deal, but she rejected that, and school district officials confirmed Anderson resigned from her job just a couple of weeks ago. But in a call with police, she told officers that she was actually not part of the party.
I do not participate in underage ragers or allow that. So I want to make it clear to Officer Brown that me and my boss, she might do her thing, but that's none of my business.
That trial is underway right now. Of course, we're going to be following it and continue to give you guys the latest updates both on air and online at fox35orlando.com. For now, I'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
And here's another live look inside the courtroom. Jury selection is underway. We know this is sometimes it takes time. Expected to take at least several hours this morning. The hope, from our understanding and listening to some of the previous hearings and that were held, the pretrial hearings that were held last week, the hope is to have opening statements this afternoon, and for this trial to just take the next couple of days. So we will see. We will continue to monitor just this jury selection process and check in on that in a little bit, and of course we will bring you opening statements and the trial once it does begin. Meanwhile, 3 students from Osceola High School are recovering after being shot in Davenport over the weekend. Still a lot of questions about this. We do expect to get some more details at a news conference this afternoon. Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie reports with some details, including as we hear from the school principal.
Osceola High School says they will have counseling services available on campus today for students. The principal released a statement last night saying, quote, "Our hearts and thoughts are with the students and families involved. I am extremely thankful that all 3 students survived." A spokesperson with Osceola County Schools confirms the incident was connected to a shooting in Davenport. "We are trying to learn if the students were hurt in the same shooting at the Azure Resort." Deputies say a fight led to a shooting there around 3 a.m. Sunday morning. In security camera video, you can see cars speeding from the apartment complex after it happened and deputies racing to the scene. The Polk County Sheriff's Office says more than 100 people were gathered in that area for after-prom parties at nearby Airbnbs. A group of men were fighting and then started shooting at each other. Deputies say 3 people received non-life-threatening injuries while sitting in a parked car. A 17-year-old girl was injured by a bullet that grazed her forehead. An 18-year-old boy was injured by a bullet that grazed his shoulder and forehead, and a 17-year-old boy was injured by bullet fragments in his eye. Deputies say they do not believe the 3 teens were the intended targets. One neighbor says they heard the argument.
3 o'clock in the morning, we just heard like a loud bang coming from this side of the community right next door. Once I came out here to take a look and see what was going on, we just saw a ton of cars just kind of, taking off.
Deputies say they believe the people involved are in their late teens or early 20s. No arrests have been made. The sheriff's office is encouraging anyone who may have seen or heard something to come forward. Tips can be made anonymously by calling Crime Line at 1-800-423-TIPS. Reporting in Osceola County, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
And again, we do expect to hear from Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd holding a news conference this afternoon. That's scheduled for 1:30. We will bring that to you live here on Fox Local, hoping to get some more questions answered about what happened, how those students are doing today. Give you a live look at downtown Orlando. You see the clouds in the sky, and we know there are more chances for rain and storms on this Monday. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, we're talking a Fox 35 Weather Impact Day today.
Yep. We are, Garrett. We're going to have a hot and humid day today. Our wind coming out of the southwest, coming down I-4 out of Tampa, and that means it's going to top out near 90. And when we catch some afternoon storm activity, it's going to have a lot more fuel to the fire. And so while right now everything is quiet on Fox 35 Storm Tracker radar, that is going to change. We've got a stationary front that's draped across the region, and that's also helping to produce a little bit of lift in the atmosphere and also eliminate any kind of inhibition in the sky. And there's nothing going to be stopping the rising air, and so we're going to have some storms forming, and that's going to start by 2 o'clock. And so the storms popping at 2 are going to be fairly isolated in nature, but we're going to start to see some lightning flashes, maybe hear a little bit of thunder, and these are going to be on the move. Now, as we head toward 3, 4, 5 o'clock, a couple of the storms could become strong, and by the coastline, they may become severe as a little bit of the sea breeze gets involved, a sea breeze which will have a lot of trouble getting much farther inland than about A1A. It's going to be pinned right to the barrier islands, but as the thunderstorms encounter that sea breeze, they could flare up a little bit. You can see that here on our future clouds and radar down toward Melbourne and down toward Sebastian's Inlet, where they could flare up and become a little bit stronger. They may even rotate with funnel clouds or even a brief tornado. Otherwise, most of the action today is going to be along and east of I-4 between 2 and 7 p.m. That'll be our highest chance. Very low rain chances to the west, so Ocala, Bushnell, down through Lakeland, very little rain compared to what we'll see in the Orlando area, especially Sanford, Oviedo, Chuliota points east down through St. Cloud, Kenansville, Melbourne, and Cocoa Beach. That'll be our highest rain chance. All the rain ending before dinner time, and that's when our Fox 35 Weather Impact Day will also come to an end. Now, this is the beginning in what will be a really busy weather pattern over the next week. Our rain chance today peaking between 5 and 7 p.m. at a 50 to 60% chance in Orlando, about a 70 to 80% chance on the Atlantic coast. And there is a possibility of severe weather. You can see this green shaded area from roughly Palm Coast to DeLand, Orlando to Kissimmee points east, not so much on the west coast. Now, the next 3 days, we're going to have an active period. It won't be quite as busy as this afternoon, but there will be a 30 to 40% chance for rain and high temperatures reaching the lower 90s. So it's definitely going to start to feel like May, as it is. And cumulatively, between now and next Sunday, or I should say this coming Sunday, which is 6 days from now, that's Mother's Day, we are going to pick up anywhere from 1 to as many as 5 or 6 inches cumulatively. So when you add it all up, where you might get an inch or two one day, a quarter inch the next day, maybe an inch or two the next day. So this will be good for drought, at least partial relief. I don't want to go as far as saying, hey, this is going to end the drought, because we're down like over a foot in some areas. It's going to take a lot of rain, probably at least several months of rain, regular rain, to finally extinguish the drought. We'll probably see that happen around July or something like that. But anyway, this is good. And in the near term, it'll start to green up the grass and make the landscape look a lot more like Florida, less like Phoenix. Well, 60% chance of rain today. It's an impact day. We've got a pretty decent chance for some strong storms. The school pickup at 2 o'clock or the school bus stop, it may be kind of a wet go of things depending on where you are. And for the evening commute, that'll be our best shot for the rain. So there's going to be impacts to our afternoon plans. Looking ahead to Mother's Day weekend, 70% chance of rain on Saturday. So don't cancel your plans, but if you have any outdoor activities, the beach, the lake, the river, camping, make sure you keep a close eye on the Fox Local app for your latest radar to keep an eye on the sky. You don't want these storms to creep up on you. Lightning is going to be a big threat here if you look ahead to the next 7 to 10 days with regular storm chances just about every afternoon. Garrett?
All right, certainly something you got to be aware of. Now, I'll tell you what, it caught me by surprise. I knew we had rain chances, but when I finally heard that rain on the roof over the weekend, I was like, it's finally here.
It's come. I think it was the first time I've heard thunder in months.
Yeah, that's a good point. It
was remarkable. Actually, my wife came, it was breakfast time. She was getting ready and she came out of the room and said, "What was that?" She thought it was a bomb that had gone off. No, it was just a clap of thunder, but it was one of those really intense positive strikes and it shook the whole house. She didn't know if it was something over the Space Coast like a sonic boom. Said, "Nope, it's just thunder."
Yeah, crazy how we forget. I know my dogs definitely forgot. They were terrified once it finally started thundering like that. Well, Fox 45 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us this morning.
You got it. My pleasure as always, Garrett. Thank you.
And we'll give you another live look at the downtown Orlando and Lake Eola on this Monday morning. You see some of those clouds sticking around. And as Brooks was saying, keep that app handy because you're going to want to know when that rain and when those storms are coming, not just today, but throughout the week as well. Well, we are still standing by for the start of this news conference, expecting Governor Ron DeSantis to speak any minute now in Key West, waiting for that to begin. Again, we will bring that to you when it begins. In the meantime, we appreciate you watching us here on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. And if you are watching us on YouTube, we hope you go ahead and drop us in the chat here where you're watching from. I see Jamaica Ross watching from North Carolina. We appreciate you joining us here this morning. So if you're watching and in the chat, go ahead and let us know where you're watching from. Say hey. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them there as well. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday morning, live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. And again, if you are watching us on YouTube, say hey in the chat, ask us any questions if you have any, and tell us where you're watching from. We'd appreciate it. We are still waiting for Governor Ron DeSantis in Key West, hoping to bring that to you here in the next couple of minutes. But while we wait on that, the Attorney General, Florida's Attorney General James Uthmeier, was in St. Augustine this morning as Florida hosted the spring conference for the National Alliance for State Drug Enforcement Agencies. The Attorney General opened up the conference by talking about the opioid epidemic and also about how enforcing drug laws has changed. Here's what the Attorney General said earlier this morning in St. Augustine.
This is like a drug cartel's worst nightmare right here. Well, glad to have you. It's great to have so many drug enforcement officers, law enforcement officers here in the great state of Florida, what we call the Free State. But I tell everybody, the Free State of Florida does not mean you get to do whatever the heck you want. You don't have the right to do wrong here in Florida. You got the right to live your life, raise your family, visit and enjoy our wonderful environment and beaches. But if you get into trouble, we will hold you accountable down here. So I'm just about my third month on the job here. I'm still fairly new as AG, but it's been an honor. We're working hard. We're delivering results every day, and I will tell you the best aspect of this job is to get to work hand in hand with law enforcement each and every day. You guys do the Lord's work. The drug overdose crisis is something that's been raging for a long time, and I think it always will be, and that's why your continued work is so important. Today we see fentanyl, which is the worst we've seen, and before that it was opioids, and before that it was heroin and cocaine. But what we see today that is so scary is the target. Drugs are now targeting people from 8 years old to 80 years old. It's in gummy bears, it's in candy, it's in colorful packaging. It's targeting our kids, it's targeting our elderly, it's targeting everybody. And the chemical components have made it not just a profitable way to get things into the country, but also a new way for our foreign adversaries to wage warfare on our country, to go after our kids, to go after our families. This is the new era of warfare. It's less so planes and more so coming in at the southern border, seeping its way into our communities, and terrorizing good everyday Americans. So I thank you for the work you do. It does seem like there are positive glimpses of hope. We had over 100,000 national deaths from overdose just a couple of years ago, and that number appears to have come down to about 80,000. In Florida, I know we've seen a recent drop of about 5% in total overdose deaths, about 10% when it comes to opioid deaths. So there's positivity here. That said, there's still far too many people dying. Thousands of people here in Florida, tens of thousands at the national level, and it further highlights how important the work is that you all do. So thank you. I know you all are on the front lines. You even at times don't know if you yourself might get exposed to the dangers of some of these hazards, but you do it anyway, and the country thanks you for it. Here in Florida the last few months, we've been busy right out of the gate since I got in office. Late February, we busted a fentanyl trafficker who was supplying to over 30 individuals. 500 grams were seized, enough to kill 250,000 people, and he got a 20-year-plus sentence. Shortly thereafter, we busted a big club that was doing significant drug and human trafficking. Thankfully, our legislature, under the leadership of our governor, has worked very hard to empower you guys and create more deterrence for people that want to traffic fentanyl. We have passed legislation to heighten the criminal penalties and also make it easier for prosecutors to charge people with murder and attempted murder where you have a death related to a fentanyl overdose. These are the things that we've got to do to have your backs. And I hope as we're working with our partners in other states that they're doing the same thing. And in Florida, at the end of the day, we have to have prosecutors that are going to put people away. And where prosecutors don't want to do their job, where they don't want to follow the law, where they want to have non-prosecution agreements, we hand them a brown box and show them the door. And our governor, thankfully, has proven time and again that he will use his constitutional authorities everywhere necessary to suspend people from office if they do not want to do their job. You all put your lives on the line. You stick your necks out. You do the Lord's work, and the least we can do as attorneys, as prosecutors, is have your back. I've got a family friend, a close family over in Panama City, and they have a daughter about my age who was a good student, top of her class, not somebody that was out partying, active in her church, and unfortunately she lost her life a couple years ago. Was doing some marijuana for an early time. I don't know if it was the first time, but this was not the type of individual that did that, and didn't realize that it was laced with fentanyl. And it has wrecked that family. I mean, this is a family that was not used to tragedy, that was not used to hardship. Of all the people that were going to have a drug-related issue, this was not that family. And I think this example, it's not unique. There are others like it, and it shows how widespread and dangerous this crisis really is. So in Florida, we're going to continue to have your back. We're going to fight every day to give you the resources you need. And we're also going to try to, nip it at the bud on the outset. Because at the end of the day, we can fight on the back end all we want. But we're not solving the problem by continuing to mop up a leak if we don't fix the loose faucet. And so we believe in educating and empowering. We've rolled out the first fully funded universal school choice plan that allows parents to receive funds. The dollars go to the backpacks and they can be steered to the school that best meets the needs of that student. And it doesn't matter income demographic, it applies to everybody. We're going to educate, we're going to empower, and then we are going to provide the resources to law enforcement so that they can do the job. We've been blessed. We've had a lot of law enforcement officers from around the country that have wanted to move here, and I'm not trying to pick people off from other states right now. We need you where you're at. But where people don't want to back the blue, where they don't care about rule of law, we will recruit officers here. We've got great bonus programs, and we're continuing to have a 50-year crime low because we've got leaders that understand the importance of keeping the streets safe. At the end of the day, there's a lot of policy making that goes on, everything from business and commerce to education to you name it, but none of it matters if people are not safe. You have to have safety. Everything else comes second. So that's what we believe here. We push it here in the free state of Florida, and we're glad to have you all here spending your time in this conference. I hope it's very productive. Let us know if we can do anything to be helpful to you. If you're coming from another state, we're happy to share our playbook. We don't have all the answers, but we've certainly learned a lot, and I believe we're tip of the spear, leading the country when it comes to combating fentanyl and the drug epidemic. Thankfully, too, we now have a closed southern border. We're already seeing positive results, because of that. And we're thankful that we have a federal government that wants to work with us hand in hand to ensure that dangerous people and dangerous, drugs do not make it into our country at the southern border. So I'll leave you with this. Our motto in the AG's office here is to do what's right and just every day. If you're doing that in your work, everything else will take care of itself.
That was the Attorney General speaking at the National Alliance for State Drug Enforcement Agencies, their spring conference in St. Augustine. We know Mark Glass, the FDLE commissioner, also spoke at that event as well. We were hoping to bring you Governor Ron DeSantis in Key West. Unclear if we're going to have a live feed to bring that to you. But if we are not able to bring that to you live, as soon as we do get that news conference, we will play it for you, but it may be in a delayed fashion. It does not appear that we have a live feed of that at the moment, but we are keeping an eye out for that as well from Key West. Well, if we appreciate you joining us this morning. We're going to take a quick break on Fox 35 News Plus, but leave it here on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. And if you have any questions or want to talk with us in the chat, feel free to drop us a line in the YouTube chat as well. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back in 2 minutes.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back inside Fox 35 News Plus. Appreciate you joining us on this Monday morning. I want to get you inside the courtroom in Volusia County, where the Xbox murders resentencing trial is ongoing. This is now the second full week of trial after nearly a week of jury selection. This is the resentencing for Troy Victorino and Jerron Hunter, who were sentenced in the killings of 6 people and a dog that happened back in 2004. We've been talking with you a little bit about this and the reasons for it. They were sentenced to death and having to be resentenced now, face that potential penalty again or life in prison. Hearing some testimony now from a gentleman I believe may be some sort of psychologist. I missed the introduction, but he's talking about speaking with one of the suspects and their recollection of what happened. He was talking about them kind of not remembering much because of kind of being in a blackout kind of situation. Let's go ahead and listen in as this testimony continues live right now in Volusia County.
In trying to tell someone their story, to give someone an impression or interpretation of what happened, they may not recall each of those at that moment.
Do you remember him telling you about an image of the central area of the house?
At this juncture, I don't.
Okay. Do you remember him telling you about an image of being back in the car?
Yes.
Do you remember him... let me strike that question. Got ahead of myself. I want to ask you about some other things. Did he ever mention the name Aaron Belanger when you were calling the incident?
I don't recall the name.
And the purpose of this second interview was specifically to talk to him about his use of substances and the incident that day, right?
More, well, combination, but mostly to try to recall the amounts and when he was using. Like, was it all day? Was it just at a particular time during the day? Whether it was over multiple days prior. And I did ask questions about the incident, but there was limited recall.
And he never mentioned kicking in the door to you, did he?
I don't recall kicking in. I also don't think he was the first one in the door.
He never mentioned any type of motive to you, right?
I think it was to get his things back.
Do you recall being asked in your deposition that, so Mr. Victorino had no plan, no purpose that he could recall? Do you recall being asked that question?
I don't, but with regards to injuring someone, I don't think.
About the purpose of going into the house.
Well, I think it was clearly over multiple days, and including that day was an attempt to go reclaim his things that were being kept from him there.
But did he report that to you, or did he report something else that there was no plan? Refresh your recollection, take a look at your deposition.
Sure. See the context of how it was asked.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Let me just look at page 9. You can start at the top of the page, but my focus is on lines 10 and 12.
Yes, sir.
10 through 12.
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection?
It does, but it's the same way I was answering the question a minute ago, that it is clear from multiple records that their intent was to go get his things. I didn't recall any plan or intent of the interaction that took place.
Okay, that's, I know you know about other records. I'm focusing on your conversation with Mr. Victorino and what he reported to you.
Same answer.
He didn't mention any baseball bats, did he?
No.
He didn't describe to you looking through the whole house for drugs, did he?
Well, he went looking for his things. Whether it was drugs was the primary, I don't know.
He didn't tell you about bats being placed back into the vehicle, did he?
I don't recall that. I don't think he was driving, so.
Well, you just said he didn't mention bats at all, so.
Correct.
He didn't mention bats being put back into a car either, right?
That's what I just said. No, I don't recall that.
He didn't tell you about driving back to a friend's house afterwards?
I don't recall that.
He didn't tell you about seeing the other 4 dead bodies when he came out of the bedroom, right?
I don't recall that.
And he didn't tell you that he observed Ms. Belanger and Mr. Roman in bed together when he entered the bedroom?
No, sir.
And of course, you said before you didn't mention a Ms. Belanger or Aaron Belanger at all. Right?
I don't recall those names.
Do you review any DOC records in this case? Department of Corrections?
I understand the question. I don't recall receiving any.
Okay, so you don't recall whether or not you were shown any records about current prescriptions that the defendant is taking at the Department of Corrections?
I did have that, so I must, if that's where that derived from, I must have gotten that. Or it could have been a request from Mr. Victorino as to what he was taking. They were consistent with the medications I heard just shortly ago.
Okay, consistent with the ones you heard from Dr. Danson.
They are.
May I have one moment, Judge?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Dr. Buffington, you were asked about the repetition of the administration of these substances and the records that you reviewed, and is it your opinion that the repetition that you saw could have been enough to cause long-term harm in the developing brain of Mr. Victorino?
Most definitely. We try to restrict to a one-item use. If it's a pre-medication for a procedure, restrict the quantity and the volume used, not repetition.
And you've testified a lot about the confluence of all of these things, the pre-existing mental health diagnoses, the administration of these substances, exposure to substance abuse, his own substance abuse, is a byproduct of those things an inability to manage conflict?
Very much so.
Is a byproduct of that an inability, a propensity to be more prone to addiction?
Absolutely.
Behavior that's frenzied.
Frenzied, chaotic.
Loss of control would be easier.
Correct. Impulsivity.
So do you have information in this case that's consistent with the arc of the traumatic and substance abuse events that you've seen in his life?
Directly compatible.
And sir, when you went to interview Mr. Victorino in April of 2023, was your directive from the defense team go and get a moment-by-moment recitation of what he did that day?
It was not.
What was the purpose of that discussion, sir?
Well, there were two. So the first one was doing a chronology of his life. The second was to get additional clarification on substances, alcohol, cocaine. I also think there was some steroid use during that time, which steroids can not only help with bodybuilding or muscle repair, but they can also have emotional instability as well. So it was to try to ascertain what was the involvement of those substances in independent random recreational use, or was it a daily and repetitive use? And it was the latter.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
The steroid use, did that information also come from Mr. Victorino?
It did.
Did he report when that was?
It was in the month prior is what I recalled, but not a specific date.
The month prior. And just like, I know you weren't here for Dr. Danzier's testimony, just like his work in this case, your job isn't to question the credibility of the information that's being given to you, right?
Correct. I can't go back and, in that circumstance, go back and find out where it was purchased, where it was acquired, how many milligrams were administered.
Especially when someone's self-reporting 20 years later.
Well, correct. Even if it's a patient in an exam room from something in the last 30 days, it's in the same caliber. I'm factoring that information into my analysis.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Oh, sure.
Questioning continues in the Xbox murders resentencing trial in Volusia County. That case out of 2004 that we will have been following for a couple of weeks now, with jury selection, with the first week of trial, with the defense putting on its case now. Fox 35's Chris Lindsay has been in the courtroom. We checked in with him on Friday about how things have kind of been going with this. We are still waiting. It still sounds like there could be a couple more days of this, the defense putting on their presentation, and then we will see how long it takes the jury to deliberate whether what they believe the appropriate sentence is at this point. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Monday morning live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. And if you are joining us on YouTube, drop us a line in the chat there. Say hey, ask us any questions that you may have, and let us know where you're watching from. We like to see that. We are following up today on an arrest of a so-called sovereign citizen. This happened in Volusia County, where investigators say they arrested Early Myers twice in the past 10 days on the same charges. He was out on bond when he was stopped again on Saturday evening, now facing multiple charges. But this man again claims he is a sovereign citizen and therefore not beholden to the law. Fox 35's Marie Edinger had the chance to speak just moments ago with Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood about this arrest and also about sovereign citizens in general.
Okay, so what I feel like once in a while, like not frequently, not infrequently, we run into people who just think like they are sovereign citizens, the law does not apply to them. What's that like for you?
You know, first, what you have to look at is just last year in 2024, a Dallas police officer was killed during a car stop with one of these clowns, and they're dangerous clowns. On August of 24, a sovereign citizen live streamed his shootout with law enforcement when he was stopped for traffic violation. They eventually killed him. And think of what happened in Polk County last year in Lakeland. Deputies approach a guy in a park after hours who turns out to be a sovereign citizen. He shoots the two deputies, and the deputies return fire and kill him. So, you know, this isn't really a joke, even though I used the term he's a clown. And with modern technology out there, you know, the second time he got stopped, you know, his information was put into modern technology and it alerted the deputies that he's out riding around again. So I'm hopeful that we've asked for a bond revocation. We asked that he be held without bond. You know, we want to impound this truck. We want him to understand you just don't type up documents. And you hear some of the things he refers to, his live birth paperwork that's in his car. You know, it doesn't fly. It's illegal. You don't have the right to do it, and you're going to be arrested. But, you know, we do train on this. We do train that if you go back through history during car stops or confrontations, these people do turn deadly. And I do know that a lot, they do file tons of frivolous lawsuits that tie up the court system when it comes to challenging people's legitimate business owners, legitimate homeowners, their property rights. So they're dangerous. They need to be monitored, and law enforcement needs to, you know, stay on top of them. And listen, I'm proud of what my deputies did. You refused to comply with us. They were much more respectful than I would have ever been, because after I broke the window, he would have been ripped out by the scruff of his neck, which is the second time we've gone down this road with you, and you just don't get it.
When you're saying they, in this context, you're talking about people who view themselves as sovereign citizens.
These sovereign citizens who have their own driver's license and their own license plate, and they don't adhere to any law other than, which is interesting because what they do say is the only law enforcement agency they respect is the county sheriff. But yet this guy continues to drive around in the land knowing that's our jurisdiction, thinking, hey, I'm going to present these documents and you know, you're just going to let me drive on. But that's not going to happen.
Explain to people like it doesn't exist. Like every person is subject to the law of the community that you are in.
If you don't want to drive a vehicle on the highways and byways of the United States of America and the state of Florida, take a bus, get a bike, ride a horse. But if you're going to operate a motor vehicle, there are laws there. Your car must be registered with the state of Florida. You must have a Florida or a valid driver's license. You must have insurance. These are things that we all do, right? It's a social responsibility of all of us to obey the law, not just go off the reservation and say, you know what, I'm not doing that. I don't respect the federal government. I don't respect state government, local government. I'm just going to type up my own documents and slap my own tag on the car. You know, he's an uninsured, unlicensed motorist. What happens if he runs into somebody or runs over somebody or leads us on a pursuit and kills somebody? There's no anything there. You know, there's no liability. There's no nothing, and you're left out in the cold for what you're doing, what is your social responsibility, which is to follow the law.
How do you convince people that they are subject to that law, even if they don't believe themselves to be?
You're not going to convince them, because you're talking to people who are completely divorced from reality here. Okay, they believe what they believe, and they're just going to continue going on that way. I mean, look at it. Look at what they're doing. A traffic stop. A Dallas police officer was killed last year. You know, a traffic stop where the guy live streams the shootout with law enforcement and eventually is killed. And then it would happen in Polk County. So these are people that in some ways are willing to die for what they believe in. And that's what makes them extremely dangerous to all of us.
I was just going to say, like, I can understand how that would wind up so dangerous so quickly, because if they to their core believe that you have no authority over them, and you're, as you said, like hauling them out of the car, if somebody's getting physical or somebody's telling them what to do and they're not complying, I can see how that would escalate so quickly if they just don't respect that sense of authority. Like, that's gotta be scary.
It is, because you're dealing with somebody, again, who is willing to take a life and lose their life over these beliefs. You know, if you watch that video closely, and you watch where the deputies break in the window, he tells the other deputy there, cover me, because he knows he's going to have to use both hands. He can't have his firearm out. And if this guy comes up with a weapon, he needs to know that, you know, what's going to happen. And, you know, thank God this guy, you know, once he was taken out of the car, he complied, just as he did the last time, a couple of days ago when we arrested him, he complied. But this is an anomaly. Normally they're not complying. Normally there's a fight. Now, the first time he just went along with the program. The second time he's like, I'm not getting out. You have no right to stop me. If we go the third time, we're going to be having a different conversation, I believe, because the other parts of these sovereign nations are probably going to get this guy to arm himself and indoctrinate him even further. So I'm worried if he gets out, what's going to happen next. And believe me, I have all the confidence in the world the courts are going to let him
out. So what happens next for you guys then? I mean, you just wait around and hope things go well? Or, I mean, I know it's not hoping. I know you train a lot, but.
Well, I am hoping that a judge denies him bond. Clearly, he does not want to comply with the law, and he's held. And then we go to trial, and then he'll be found guilty and go to jail. But again, you're driving without a license. You know, your car's unregistered. There's traffic violations there. There's only so much you could do. He's going to get back out. He's going to get behind the wheel of a vehicle again. And that's the danger to the public and to law enforcement is that.
I was going to ask what it was like for you seeing it happen a second time so soon.
It was, I received a alert as soon as they stopped him that you're not going to believe this. Guess who stopped again for a traffic violation? And the same thing is happening, and they had to forcibly remove him from the car. And that was probably within, I don't know, 5 minutes of them stopping him again. And you just shake your head and like, thank God, you know, he's in custody and everybody's going home safely. Even this knucklehead is going to jail safely. And all my deputies, they did everything that they needed to do. And, you know, that's the way it goes. Some people think that I have the right not to roll my window down. I have the right not to comply with lawful orders. Guess what? You're getting your window knocked out.
I think from the public's perspective, it's easy to look at this and laugh and be like, oh my God, again, like he just got caught. And for you, you're like, I'm just glad everything went well.
Because I know in my profession, I remember distinctly what went on in Polk County last April. You know, I remember clearly it was all last year, you know, where a police officer in Dallas was killed during a traffic stop. And I remember the guy that live streamed, the sovereign citizen that live streamed getting pulled over by the deputies in Texas and then fleeing and then engaging them in a gun battle where he was terminated. But that's the first thing when I hear that, it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because it's not a regular car stop. It's somebody who does not respect the laws of the land. And in some cases, if they are fervent believers in this, they are going to use violence to take someone out, knowing full well they're going to get taken out as well.
And that was Sheriff Chitwood on dealing with sovereign citizens. You heard him talk about some of the fears there because of the fact that they don't recognize any authority for those law enforcement agencies. We will continue to follow that case with that most recent arrest of that man in Volusia County as well. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday morning, live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. I want to let you know, as we get closer to the top of the hour here, we are standing by for a news conference at noon from this group called Florida Decides Healthcare. They are efforting a ballot initiative for 2026 that would expand Medicaid. They say they are making a, quote, important announcement about the new HB 1205. That's the ballot initiative's now law that we talked a lot about last week as it was debated in the House and the Senate. So it adds restrictions, creates some limits, also toughens up some penalties for fraud if there are, when it comes to groups attempting to put constitutional amendments on the ballot. So the citizen-led ballot initiative process. The House passed the bill, the Senate passed the bill, the governor signed it into law on Friday night. Proponents say this bill is needed because it's needed to combat fraud in the ballot initiative process. These are conversations and allegations that came up in the aftermath of Amendments 3 and Amendment 4 that were on the ballot last fall. But critics say it basically, they fear it could shut down future petition drives in these citizen-led initiatives. So Florida Decides Healthcare is going to speak. They're holding a virtual news conference that's expected to begin at noon. So we will bring that to you here on Fox Local when it begins. This afternoon, we also expect to hear from Monique Worrell, the state attorney for Orange and Osceola counties. She's holding a news conference at 1 o'clock to talk about, to announce an audit and also talk about some budgeting things within the state attorney's office. So that we will certainly bring you here as well. And then at 1:30, Sheriff Grady Judd from Polk County giving an update on the shooting in Davenport that injured 3 Osceola high school students. So those are some things that we have coming up for you in just a little bit. Wanted to kind of give you the lay of the land here, but we still have a few minutes while we were waiting on that news conference to start, and I want to bring the story out of Brevard County, where the city of Melbourne recently was ranked as one of the 10 safest places to live in the United States. It's ranked number 9, one spot ahead of Lakeland in Polk County. The Melbourne police chief and the Melbourne mayor were on Good Day Orlando this morning to talk about it.
All right, so we'll start with the police chief. Sir, what is it about the city that you think makes it so safe, and what changes have you made to increase safety?
So the things that make it safe is the fact that we have a mayor, we have a city council, and a city manager that's recognized the importance of its police department. And they support us with all of the technology, the equipment that we need for our officers to better serve our community. And we also have a community that supports its police department. And we are in a brand new building that we moved into this year because our community voted at a bond referendum for us to be able to purchase this brand new 75,000 square foot building. And the last piece is, collaboration with our other 13 law enforcement agencies throughout Brevard County, and then the dedicated men and women that we have on the department that lay it on the line every day.
Well, Mayor Alfred, obviously the chief laying out, the investment being made in law enforcement there and how that has really made a difference. Do you feel like that is key?
Oh, absolutely. It's key because you have to support the law enforcement, public safety, and we have done that. I have a law enforcement background as well, and we have an amazing chief, we have an amazing sheriff, and this county, we have amazing people in this county. So I absolutely agree.
So I want to talk a little bit, Mayor, about what attracts people to the city as well, because obviously having a low crime rate is a wonderful thing, but you have to have a lot of other things in order to get people to want to live in a city like Melbourne.
Well, we have our beaches, we have our rocket launches, we have our wonderful 2 downtowns, downtown O'Galley, downtown Melbourne. We try to keep the whole small hometown feel, and we're only 45 minutes away from Orlando, so we can enjoy Orlando as well.
So, Chief, talk to me a little bit about, I know that these numbers are based on FBI crime stats, and this is, you guys have done well in this survey in years past as well. Talk to me a little bit about the types of crimes that you see most often and what you're working on to try to curb.
Yeah, so we deal with a lot of property crimes, vehicle burglaries, we have a lot of thefts. We also have some concerns with dealing with our unhoused population. And so we also at times have some violence in certain parts of the city as well, as far as whether it's gunshots or, we've had some homicides, although we've had, I'm glad to report that we have not had any this year. But these are something that we stay on with our partners that from all the other agencies around, and we meet with them every 2 weeks to go over our crime stats, our trends, talk about things that they're experiencing. We share intelligence and information, and then we also leverage our federal partners as well. So it's a collaborative effort, and that's what it takes to really keep the place safe.
So Melbourne ranked number 9 when it comes to the top 10 safest places to live in the U.S., according to those latest rankings. Going to take another break here on Fox 35 News Plus. When we come back, we'll kind of reset things for you and get ready for that noon news conference that we expect in just minutes ahead of a busy afternoon when it comes to live events that we'll be bringing you here on Fox 35 News Plus. So keep it here. Going to step aside for a couple of minutes, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday morning, or well, now Monday afternoon. It is just after noon on this Monday. We appreciate you joining us here on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. We want to get you to this news conference that is beginning right now. Florida Decides Healthcare. Holding a virtual news conference. This is on Zoom, and talking about making some sort of important announcement when it comes to HB 1205, which is the new ballot initiatives law. So let's go ahead and listen in as this news conference gets underway. Well, it appears they may be waiting on some more people to join here, so we will stand by for that, waiting for that to begin any minute now. But just another reminder here of some of what we have going on. This is a news conference that we will bring you here as soon as it begins, talking about HB 1205, which was just signed into law by the governor on Friday after the House and the Senate passed it to make some changes to the ballot initiative process in an attempt to crack down on fraud. But again, critics say they worry that it could shut down future petition drives. So we are expecting to hear from the executive director of Florida Decides Healthcare, the co-chair as well. Also, someone from the Southern Poverty Law Center, a staff attorney with the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is an advocacy group, and partner at another attorney as well from the Elias Law Group. So potential legal action. We'll have to wait and see what the step is, what the announcement is when it comes to HB 1205, but we're waiting to hear from this news conference here in just a minute. Then we're also going to hear from State Attorney Monique Worrell around 1 o'clock, and the Polk County Sheriff speaking at 1:30 about the shooting that injured 3 Osceola High School students. So busy afternoon ahead here on Fox 35 News Plus. We appreciate you joining us here on Fox Local and on YouTube. Hope you stay tuned. And then at 2 o'clock, of course, is Florida Live as well. So busy afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and we'll just stand by and monitor this news conference that we expect to begin here in just a minute.
For those of us who have just joined in, we're going to get started at 12:06. So please go ahead and mute your, just go ahead and place yourself on mute, and we'll get going shortly.
All right, so you just heard there 12:06, so 1 minute away from the start of this news conference about ballot initiatives, where it's going to be interesting to hear what this announcement may be, potential action taken against this new bill that, I'm calling it a bill. We followed it quite closely as a bill for much of the last week, but it has been signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis. He signed it Friday night. The House passed it 81-30. The Senate passed it 28-9. And then the governor signed that into law. Now, this group, Florida Decides Healthcare, that is holding this news conference, they are efforting a ballot initiative in 2026 that would expand Medicaid. So this is why we are hearing from them when it comes to this. And again, this news conference expected to begin in just a moment here on Fox Local.
On here, I'm going to go ahead and hit record. All right, fantastic. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carol Molinares. I'm the Communications Director for Florida Decides Healthcare, and I'll be moderating today's press conference. Today, we're here to address the lawsuit challenging HB 1205, which threatens Floridians' constitutional right to bring citizens-led amendments to the ballot. We're grateful to have a strong group of speakers joining us today who are on the front lines of this legal and democratic fight. First, you'll hear from Mitch Emerson, which is our Executive Director for Florida Decides Healthcare, who will speak to what this law means for the campaign and why we're taking action. Next, you'll hear from Holly Bullard, co-chair of Florida Decides Healthcare, and a leading voice for democratic access in the state. We're also joined by our legal counsel, Matt Bennett from the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Emma Olson-Sharkey from the Elias Group, who will be available for questions during our Q&A portion. Everyone's names and their correct spelling are on the advisory and will also be on the press release that I will send around shortly. Please note, today's press conference is being recorded, and that full recording will be made available to members of the press shortly when we conclude. We'll begin with brief remarks from our speakers, then we'll open it up to questions from press. So if you do have a question, please go ahead and use the raise your hand function, and we'll do our best to call you in that order. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mitch Emerson.
Hello, and thank you all for being here. My name is Mitch Emerson, and I am the Executive Director of Florida Decides Healthcare, the citizen-led ballot initiative campaign for Medicaid expansion in Florida. And last night, Florida Decides Healthcare, with the help of the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Elias Law Group, filed legal action to challenge the dangerous and undemocratic House Bill 1205. The lawsuit filed in federal court argues that this new law is a direct assault on Florida's citizen-led constitutional amendment process, a vital democratic tool that gives everyday Floridians the power to propose ballot initiatives. HB 1205 violates the First Amendment rights to free speech and association, and it undermines the very foundation of participatory democracy in Florida. Let's not mince words. This bill is not about improving the ballot initiative process. It attacks the fundamental freedom of Floridians to participate in their own democracy. It is a calculated and cowardly attempt by politicians in Tallahassee to rewrite the rules, not to serve the people, but to protect their own power. This is not reform. This is repression. And we are calling it what it is, a direct assault on the voice of the people. Through the citizen-led amendment process, all Floridians from every race, every background, and income level have come together to pass policies that politicians wouldn't touch, raising the minimum wage, legalizing medical marijuana, protecting our water and land. And this process has empowered communities to create change when the legislature failed to act. But now, those same politicians, afraid of the people's power, are trying to strangle this process with red tape and intimidation. They've slashed the petition return window from 30 days to 10. They've added vague criminal penalties and punishing fines targeting well-intentioned volunteers who dare to lend a hand. They've imposed new bans on who can gather signatures, silencing entire communities of our fellow Floridians based on where they live, where they're from, or mistakes they've made years ago. They've even created a 90-day tolling period to block signature verification, deliberately stalling grassroots momentum. These are not tweaks. These are traps. These new rules are designed to make it nearly impossible for everyday people to have a voice in the laws that shape their lives, and to make sure that only the wealthy and politically connected have the means to get on the ballot. Florida already had the most restrictive ballot amendment process in the nation. This law is a machete taken to a system that needs a scalpel, punishing those who dare to organize, participate, and challenge the status quo. It is a bad faith power grab by politicians who are afraid of their own constituents. But we are not afraid. We are fighting back with this lawsuit. We are challenging this law because we believe in democracy. We believe that when politicians fail to act, the people have the right to step in. And right now, we are fighting to put Medicaid expansion in the hands of Florida voters where it belongs. Over 1.4 million Floridians fall into the Medicaid coverage gap, making too much to qualify for Medicaid and too little to afford private insurance. These are caregivers, essential workers, seniors, veterans, and our neighbors. And they've been left behind for far too long. Medicaid expansion isn't a partisan issue. It's common sense. In fact, a Mason-Dixon poll conducted just last month shows that over 78% of Floridians, including 7 in 10 Republicans, support Medicaid expansion. This overwhelming support cuts across party lines and reflects the collective will and values of Floridians. They know Medicaid expansion is an investment in our health, our economy, and our communities. But instead of letting the people vote, the governor and his allies are throwing up roadblocks because they know when Floridians have a say, progress wins. We will not let them silence us. We will not let them rig the rules. And we will not stop fighting until every Floridian has the freedom to vote on the future they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Holly Bullard, our co-chair.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Holly Bullard. I am co-chair of Florida Decides Healthcare. Today, we are standing up to an outrageous attack on democracy by filing a lawsuit to block House Bill 1205, a law that turns Florida's citizen-led amendment process into a bureaucratic nightmare. This is not about party. Majorities of Republicans, Independents, and Democrats in Florida support protecting the ballot initiative process and also expanding Medicaid, as 40 other states have done. Today, we stand in solidarity with Floridians from Pensacola to Little Havana to protect the citizen-led amendment process as enshrined in the Florida Constitution. Let's be clear, this isn't about transparency or accountability. This is about control. This law was written by politicians who want to decide which voices get heard, which ideas make it to the ballot, and which communities have a say in their own future. They are dismantling one of the last remaining tools everyday Floridians have to check their power. Citizen-led amendments are about people, not politicians, is one of the only ways Floridians can bypass a gridlocked or corrupt legislature and pass policies that actually improve lives. This is how we've raised wages, protected our environment, and demanded change. It's not perfect, but it's powerful. And that's exactly why they're trying to undermine it. With HB 1205, lawmakers have layered on unnecessary and deliberately punitive barriers. They've shortened the deadline for petition returns to just 10 days, an unworkable timeframe designed to sabotage grassroots organizing. They've banned essential quality control measures and created harsh fines for honest mistakes. They've expanded who counts as a petition circulator, including unpaid volunteers, and are now threatening them with criminal charges if they aren't registered. And who are they targeting? A mom helping her book club collect petitions, a veteran lending a hand at their local food drive, a senior who wants to gather signatures at church. These aren't bad actors, they're the heart of our communities. But politicians in Tallahassee want to treat them like criminals for doing something as simple as trying to help their neighbors vote on an issue that matters. Florida already has the strictest citizen-led amendment process in the country, nearly 1 million signatures and a 60% vote threshold to pass. It wasn't written in good faith. It was written to break the back of grassroots campaigns and consolidate power in the hands of a few. But Floridians are still fighting. We are still organizing, and we are still collecting signatures, building coalitions, and refusing to give up. If we don't fight to get citizen-led amendments on the ballot, despite these restrictions, we are capitulating in advance to their attempt to silence our rights. And let's not forget what we are fighting for. Florida Decides Healthcare is fighting to give voters the chance to expand Medicaid, to provide affordable, life-saving healthcare to over 1.4 million Floridians. These are working families, parents, and caregivers who fall into the coverage gap. People who are too poor to buy insurance, but too wealthy to qualify for help under our outdated system. They have been ignored by politicians for too long. This is not about partisanship. This is about people. Medicaid expansion would strengthen our economy, protect our communities, and bring billions of our tax dollars back home to help our own people. But instead of letting the people decide, politicians are doing everything they can to block the process. Not because they believe they're right, but because they know they'd lose at the ballot box. We will not let them rig the rules. We'll not let them silence us. We are fighting back in courts, in our communities, and at the ballot box, because the future of our democracy depends on it. And we're not just fighting to fix what's broken, we're fighting to build something better. That I'll give it back to Carol.
Thank you, Holly. So at this time, we're going to open it up to any questions folks might have. Please go ahead and raise your hands or drop anything in the chat. All right, checking in that folks can raise their hand. The function's still up. Alex with Bloomberg, do you want to bring yourself off mute and ask your question?
Happily, yeah. Good morning, folks. So looking through the complaint, I didn't see much that was directly analogous in terms of, prior precedent that you all cited in the complaint that would back up your, First Amendment claims here. So, are there cases in other states you all can point to, and what were, those restrictions that were knocked down by similar lawsuits?
Matt, do you want to take this one or do you want me to? Either way.
Absolutely. I mean, I could take it. I think what's very clear here is that the right to circulate petitions is grounded in our First Amendment rights. And that is backed up by two very strong Supreme Court cases, Meyer versus Grant and Buckley versus American Constitutional Law. Both of those cases make it clear that circulation of petitions is core political speech protected by the First Amendment. There are some other cases that further lay out what those what specific provisions that have been struck down, and we believe that many of those provisions are very similar and analogous to the ones that we are challenging here.
I 100% agree with that. And honestly, those cases, the restrictions in those cases don't go nearly as far as what the Florida law does. And so this is dead on precedent, and they're cited in our brief multiple times.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Emma. Alex, do you have any follow-up to that?
No, that's great. Thanks.
Fantastic. Stu, I'll go ahead and kick it on over to you if you want to take yourself off mute.
Yes, thank you very much. Stu Local, Columbia County Observer. I just found out about this about 15 minutes before the meeting. Is there some place where the lawsuits are available on the internet or any of you emails that you sent out so they can be read? That's my question only.
Yeah, Stu, I'm gonna send a press release right after this press conference, and it'll have the complaint, the full complaint as filed, linked to it.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Evan.
Hey folks, one of the
arguments that the governor has made is that there's fraud in the process. I assume you disagree with that. What's your just general reaction to the idea that there's some kind of, you know, inappropriate conduct being done by people who are gathering these petitions or compiling them to submit them?
Carol, you want me to take
Yeah,
that?
Mitch.
All right. To be honest, that's a talking point and not the truth. And frankly, HB 1205 doesn't target fraud, it targets participation. This law wasn't written to fix a problem, it was written to create one for grassroots campaigns and everyday people. I just think this is making it much more challenging than actually addressing any of the governor's claims.
What level or what difficulty would obtaining social security numbers, driver's licenses, driver's license numbers have on the ability to gather petitions in the volume needed to pass the thresholds?
I think that including that additional personal information is going, like, categorically to make it much more challenging to ask people for additional personal information. The challenge of Florida, where we already have an incredible hurdle to clear, again, as we've said, it was already one of the more difficult states in the country, arguably the most difficult to get a citizen-led ballot initiative on the process, collecting 900,000, approximately 900,000 valid signatures. Also incorporating asking people to put things like their social security number is clearly meant as a deterrent to make people feel less likely to give that information. So,
And Mitch, can I jump in here quick?
please do.
One thing in talking to circulators who are doing this work already as part of the litigation is that when asking them about this, they have said, oh, people will just walk away if you have to provide this additional information. It's also not necessary to be able to match people back on the supervisors. And so this is, again, like Mitch said, just a deterrent to make it harder to use the process.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Emma. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Aaron for your question. Aaron, you might still be on mute. We're not sure if you left us already. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on over to Mitch Perry.
Yeah, good morning. Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, Mitch, I think I heard you say something, but it's really, really low. Not sure if anybody else can hear it.
Try to speak louder here. Basically, I'm not sure how many signatures you guys have right now, but obviously this law stays in effect. I mean, how damaging is it for you to get the requisite signatures by next February if this law stays in place?
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing, but I'm gonna base off of what I see in the chat there, the question. I think the best way to answer that is that this law has already impacted our campaign. The fear is very real. Volunteers are second guessing whether they can legally help. Communities are confused. And that's exactly what the law was designed to do, to sow confusion and try to shut down engagement before it starts. But that said, we're not stopping. We are continuing, and we are making sure to adapt and continue to work on the process. And we have every confidence that we will be successful before the February 1st deadline.
All right, thanks, Mitch. And other Mitch, do you have any follow-up questions to that? All right, thank you. All right, so I'm gonna kick it on over to David Lieb. You want to ask yours?
Yeah, this is David Lieb with the Associated Press. Just for someone outside of the state, where do you stand in the process of getting the Medicaid expansion on the ballot? Have you turned in, for example, your proposed language? Are you past that? Are you already collecting signatures? Just where are you right now?
Mitch, if you want to answer that one.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? My audio is getting a little.
Yeah, I want to know where you are in the process right now, from the point of drafting language to submitting it to the state to gathering petition signatures. Where do you stand right now?
We are already at the point of process of gathering signatures. We've gathered approximately 100,000 signatures so far. And, obviously, again, with the passage of HB 1205, it has created a lot of undue rule changes and things that are happening mid-process, but we have already started that process and are collecting petitions.
So how would this affect some of those signatures you've already gathered? For example, do you have a volunteer that collected more than 25 signatures, and would those potentially be invalidated if that person hadn't registered? How does this affect mid-process, things like that?
I think that's probably an question better answered by counsel than me.
Yeah, I can start, and then Matt, do you want to hit on anything I miss? So basically, at this point, some of the provisions of the law are not quite in effect yet. The 10-day return policy or requirement is, along with some of the other requirements, but that registration process is not in effect yet. It won't be until July 1. That being said, the harmful effects of this law are already happening, right? People are more nervous about taking out petitions. They're unclear about what the obligations are. And we are going to need to make sure that we're all along the way complying with all the laws to make sure we are set. And so practically, it's already having the intended effect.
Okay, great. Olivia, I know you're asking how many petitions we've collected so far. Mitch has answered that one already. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it on over to James Call.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. And filing the lawsuit on a Sunday evening, is that a sense of urgency, a sign that that there's a sense of urgency going on here?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. The governor signed the law on Friday evening. And as Emma mentioned, many of these provisions went immediately into effect. And so challenging this law is very critical to the sustainability of Florida Decides Healthcare and their ability to continue collecting petitions. So we needed to file as soon as we were ready. So we filed on the Sunday evening.
Yeah, and a follow-up, please. Do you feel as if like you started the petition process and in the middle of the game, the rules have been changed? Is that a fair way of presenting what's going on here?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, counsel can answer, but yes, that is, it is. It feels like we, getting a citizen-led ballot initiative is a complicated process. Sorry, someone was already asking about filing the language and doing all these things, and it was already a very challenging process here in Florida, and midway through having rules change immediately is incredibly difficult.
And just to add to that, James, I mean, you hit it right on the head, the nail right on the head. This is exactly what that is. And ultimately, we'll just say what it is as well. This is just another attack by conservatives in power to stop the will of the people, not only in Florida, but nationally.
Fantastic. Eric, I see your hand. I have a couple people in the chat, so I'll come right back to you after these two questions. Kate, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if y'all have any working estimates on how much more this could cost you as a campaign if, fewer unpaid volunteers are willing, having to rely on more paid staff. What does that look like at this point?
Mitch, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, we are figuring that out, but it will be millions of dollars. I will, as the law was obviously going through the legislature, there were different versions, and then, it was both passed and signed quietly in Friday night, and we were attempting to adapt quickly, but we're still figuring that out, but it will be millions of dollars. And again, this is one of the things where it is clearly meant, if, the argument is this is about protecting, citizens and giving, making the system safe. All it's doing is excluding people and who are not wealthy or well-connected from being a part of this process. It is going to make anyone who is trying to do this in the state of Florida, make it enormously, and in many cases prohibitively uncostly or too expensive to do this process. So yes, it's going to have an enormous cost effect.
Thanks, Mitch. Dara, for your question.
Sorry. I just was wondering, you said that the different provisions go into effect at different times. The provision requiring that the financial impact statement be included on the petition, how will that affect your process?
Matt, do you want to go ahead or do you want me to? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can take it. No problem. So according to the new provision, the fiscal impact statement, as you mentioned, will have to be included on the petition. Because FDH has already filed their petition, it would not immediately affect them. Nevertheless, when they do get to the point of having to submit to a financial impact estimating conference, which is at the 25% threshold, there are concerns that this could ultimately affect their operations, in fact, their ability to continue, because you now have a government implemented veto. FDH is not the organization that, or the government entity that drafts the FIS statement. That is the fiscal impacts estimating conference. So if the Supreme Court finds that it is invalid, they could very well be punted back to the beginning.
Thanks, Matt. Eric, your question?
Sure, thanks. I just wanted to know how quickly you expect the court to respond. I believe it's Judge Walker, who's the judge over the case. Given the urgency, you guys have till February 1st to collect like 880-some thousand petitions. That's not an easy feat, especially with the new law. So how quick?
I can start with that. We intend to file shortly a temporary restraining order as well. And so we are going to move forward with that shortly. Then we expect to hear in the coming days after that. This has to be quick.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna kick it on over to Evan, and that will be the end of our Q&A portion.
Sorry, thanks for taking me again. I just wanted to ask, obviously we've seen robust discussion about several issues that have been on amendments over the last number of years, abortion, recreational marijuana. I'm just wondering how much of a loss do you think that would be to Floridians without having those policy discussions and conversations that people in their communities have when these amendments come up, if they're happening much less frequently?
I'll go first, but obviously anyone else, if you have more to add, but it is an enormous cost. Again, the citizen-led ballot initiative process allows the people to bring up issues that aren't being touched by the legislature, and many of them people want. That we know, again, speaking for Medicaid expansion, this is something that is popular. It is bipartisan support, and really the only reason it has been done here has been political, right? It's beneficial for everyone. But there's obviously a lot of other issues beyond Medicaid expansion that will be affected by this. And if they're not talking about it or addressing it at the legislature, this is the only remaining avenue for people to have their voice heard and get some meaningful policy changes done. So it would be a enormously detrimental effect to the country and the citizens of Florida if we are not able to have those conversations, address issues that aren't being solved in Tallahassee.
And just to add to that, Mitch, since 1968, Floridians have had this right. And since 1968, the Florida legislature has made it clear that, they aren't listening to what Floridians want. And so out of that was birthed the strong citizen-led initiative process that we have today, where Floridians have fought for these things that they have advocated for at the Capitol year after year after year. And then we immediately see the response in the legislature years after those amendments have passed, making it harder and more difficult to access this constitutional right. And so exactly as Mitch said, the implementation of this law affects all Floridians, whether they have signed a petition or not, because it affects their ability to make the change that they want when they want to see it.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Again, press release will be in your inboxes soon. And if you all have any other additional questions that you might not have gotten in during this press conference, feel free to reach out to me. Just want to say thank you to Matt, Emma, Mitch, Holly. And again, yeah, if you have any other questions, even just to our legal counsel, please do reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that was a news conference from Florida Decides Healthcare. They talked about the lawsuit that they filed in federal court against the state of Florida, challenging the new ballot initiatives law. That's HB 1205 that the House and Senate passed last week, that the governor signed into law on Friday night. Takes a number of steps, placing some additional restrictions and limits on groups that are collecting signatures and trying to put constitutional amendments on the ballot. It also creates and stiffens some penalties for violating those new restrictions and regulations. Proponents say that it is needed to combat fraud, but critics, including this group here, say it is going to make things a lot harder. Some strong words from the executive director of Florida Decides Healthcare, calling this a dangerous and undemocratic law. Says it violates the First Amendment. That's the contention that they make in their complaint in federal court, and that it undermines the democratic process. They say that Florida already had a pretty restrictive process when it came to this, but this, he said, it took a machete to a system that needs a scalpel. Also saying that this law doesn't target fraud, but instead targets participation, and that they worry that this now legal action is critical to their effort if they hope to get this amendment put on the ballot to expand Medicaid. That's what this group is hoping to do, put this amendment on the ballot in 2026 for Medicaid expansion here in the state of Florida. Well, that is going to wrap up our coverage of that news conference. I want to let you know a little bit of what we have coming up in just a little bit. 1 o'clock, State Attorney Monique Worrell announcing an audit and giving some budget updates there. We'll see what she has to say together here on Fox Local. At 1:30, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd giving an update on this shooting in Davenport over the weekend that ended up injuring 3 high school students from Osceola County. We'll have those details coming up in a little bit. We'll have that for you live as well. And then at 2 o'clock, Florida Live, our hour-long show with a statewide focus. We will take you around the state of Florida with the latest news as well. So that's what's coming up next on Fox Local. Keep it here. Much more to come in just a few minutes.